In the history of video games, studios usually fit into boxes. There are the artists, who make emotional journeys. There are the strategists, who make complex simulations. And then there are the trolls. Coffee Stain Studios was the class clown of the industry. They became millionaires by making a joke. Goat Simulator was a broken, physics-defying mess that mocked the very idea of serious game development. So, when they announced their next project, nobody believed them. They claimed they were building the most complex, mathematically precise first-person automation game ever made. It was like finding out that the guy who paints graffiti on subway cars is also a quantum physicist. But the journey from a joke to a genre-defining masterpiece was not a straight line. It involved a community revolt that nearly destroyed their reputation. It involved a gamble on a handmade world that defied all industry logic. And it involved a corporate overlord named FICSIT that turned millions of players into willing slaves of efficiency. This is the story of Satisfactory. It is the story of how a team of trolls grew up, how they survived the Epic Games Store firestorm, and how they proved that the only thing more addictive than chaos is order. To understand Satisfactory, you have to understand the identity crisis of Coffee Stain Studios. Before the GOAT, they made Sanctum. It was a hybrid of a first-person shooter and tower defense. It was smart, innovative, and moderately successful. They were serious developers. But in 2014, during a game jam, they made Goat Simulator as a joke. They released the trailer thinking a few people would laugh. Instead, the internet broke. The game sold millions, it made them rich. It put them on the map. But it also trapped them. Suddenly, they weren't the Sanctum developers. They were the GOAT guys. Whenever they pitched a new idea, people expected ragdoll physics and glitches. They expected a meme. But inside the studio, the team was itching for something else. They were playing Factorio. They were obsessed with automation. They loved the loop of mining, crafting, and expanding. But they noticed a gap. Factorio was brilliant, but it was 2D. You were a god looking down on a circuit board. Minecraft mods were 3D, but they were clunky, hidden inside menus and crafting tables. Coffee Stain asked a dangerous question. What if we make Factorio, but you are inside the machine? This sounds simple today. In 2016, it was a technical nightmare. In a 2D game, you can cheat. You don't have to render the back of a building. You don't have to calculate physics for a conveyor belt that is 10 kilometers away. In a first-person open world, you have to render everything. If the player builds a factory with 10,000 moving parts and then looks at it, the computer should explode. They chose Unreal Engine 4. This was their first bold move. Most simulation games use custom engines to handle the data. Unreal is an engine for shooters, for RPGs. It wasn't built to handle 10,000 individual iron plates moving on belts. They had to rewrite the fundamental way the engine handled movement. They created a system where the items on the belt aren't individual physics objects. They are data points, rendered into a single mesh that flows. It was a magic trick. It looked like thousands of items. But to the computer, it was just one long snake. They revealed the game at E3 2018. The trailer was perfect. It showed the lizard doggo. It showed the building. It showed the humor. The Factorio community went wild. "This is 3D Factorio," they screamed. The hype was massive. Coffee Stain had successfully shed the GOAT skin. They were back. And then, they made a business decision that turned the internet against them. 2018 and 2019 was the era of the store wars. Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, wanted to challenge Steam. They started buying exclusives. They offered developers a bag of cash to release their game only on the Epic Store for 1 year. For a developer, this is safety. It guarantees you won't go bankrupt even if the game flops. Coffee Stain took the deal. The backlash was nuclear. You have to remember, PC gamers are loyal to Steam. They saw Epic as an intruder, a company that was holding games hostage. When Coffee Stain announced the exclusivity, the community that had cheered them yesterday grabbed their pitchforks today. They were called sellouts. They were called traitors. People who hadn't even played the game vowed to pirate it. This is where most studios would go silent. They would hide behind a PR firm and release a generic statement. "We are excited to partner with Epic." Coffee Stain did the opposite. They sent out Jace Varlet, their community manager. Jace didn't apologize, he didn't hide. He looked the camera in the eye and said, "Yeah, we took the money. It helps us make the game better." He treated the angry mob like adults, or sometimes like children. They leaned into the evil corporation persona. In the game, you work for FICSIT, a company that doesn't care about you. In real life, Coffee Stain pretended to be FICSIT. When people asked, why Epic? They responded with charts showing the revenue split. They turned the controversy into content. It was a masterclass in crisis management. By the time the game actually launched in early access in March 2019, the anger had burned itself out. People were too busy watching the conveyor belts to stay mad. And once people played it, the argument was over. The game was good. Actually, it was terrifyingly good. It tapped into a primal part of the human brain, the desire to organize, the desire to fix. But unlike Factorio, which is stressful, aliens attack your base, things break. Satisfactory was chill. There's a rule in survival games. Use procedural generation. Minecraft, Factorio, No Man's Sky, they all use algorithms to generate infinite worlds. It gives the game infinite replayability. Coffee Stain looked at that rule and threw it in the trash. They decided to build the map by hand. 30 square kilometers. Every tree, every rock, every cave, every deposit of iron was placed by a human being. This was a massive risk. A fixed map means players can't just generate a new world if they get a bad start. It means once you explore everything, the mystery is gone. But Coffee Stain realized something important about verticality. In 3D, terrain is a puzzle. If you need to get coal from the bottom of a canyon to a factory on top of a cliff, that is a gameplay challenge. An algorithm doesn't know how to make a beautiful canyon that is just wide enough for a train track. A human designer does. The map, known as Massage 2 ABB, became a character in the game. Players memorized it. They talked about the Gold Coast or the Blue Crater like they were real places. It allowed for shared experiences. If you told a friend, "I built my base at the waterfalls in the northern forest," they knew exactly where you meant. They knew the challenges you faced. It created a community language. And then there was the spaghetti. Because the game didn't force you to build on a grid, players created abominations. Belts weaving over and under each other, pipes clipping through the floor. The game didn't punish you for this, it embraced it. If it works, it works. This freedom was intoxicating. You weren't fighting the game systems, you were expressing yourself. Some players built brutalist architecture, others built chaos. But development wasn't smooth. Update 3 introduced fluids, pipes, water, oil. It broke everyone's factories, nuclear power plants shut down, coal generators stopped working. The community screamed, "Why did you change it?" It was fine. This is the curse of early access. You are building the plane while flying it. Coffee Stain stood firm. They knew that complexity was the point. They didn't revert the changes. They told the players, rebuild it, make it better. And they did. By 2023, the game had been in early access for 4 years. Most studios would just polish it and release 1.0. Coffee Stain decided to do something insane. They decided to upgrade the entire game engine. They moved from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. Porting a live game with millions of objects to a new engine is like trying to replace the foundation of a skyscraper while people are working inside it. Everything broke. Physics went crazy. Vehicles fell through the floor. The iconic Lumen lighting system tanked frame rates. For months, the game felt unstable. The developers looked tired in their weekly vlogs. Snutt Treptow, the new community manager, had to explain technical concepts like nanite and virtual shadow maps to an audience that just wanted to build trains. But the risk paid off. Unreal Engine 5 future-proofed the game. It allowed for lighting that transformed the factories from video game levels into atmospheric industrial cathedrals. It allowed them to remove the fog that hid distant objects. Now you could see your space elevator from across the entire continent. It gave the game a sense of scale that no other automation game could match. The space elevator is the anchor of the game. It is the constant reminder of your purpose. You are not here to settle. You are not here to live. You are here to send resources up. To project assembly. For years, players asked, what are we building up there? Is it a ship, a Dyson sphere, a weapon? The developers stayed silent. Focus on the factory, they said. Do not ask questions. They even trolled players with items in the game that did nothing. The summer sloop, and the Mercer sphere. Alien artifacts that whispered to you, harvest it. For 5 years, if you picked them up, the game told you, work in progress. It became a running joke. But it was also a promise. It meant they weren't done. They were saving the mysteries for the end. Underneath the conveyor belts, Satisfactory is a dark satire. You play as a pioneer. You have no name, you have no face. You are dropped onto a pristine alien planet with one goal: exploit it. FICSIT Inc. is the ultimate capitalist caricature. They don't care if you die. If you respawn, the game implies you are just a clone, a replacement. The game forces you to be the villain. You land in a beautiful forest. To build your factory, you must cut down the trees. You must pave over the rivers. You must kill the local wildlife because they are in the way. By the end of the game, the beautiful world is covered in smog, concrete, and radiation, and the game rewards you for it. Efficiency first, the voice says. It is a subtle critique of industrialism, hidden inside a game that celebrates industrialism. But they never let it get too serious. Remember, these are the Goat Simulator guys. When the community begged for a story mode or deep lore, Coffee Stain released a teaser. It was a dramatic camera angle zooming in on the toilet in the player's hub. They added a flushing mechanic. That was the update. It was a reminder. We are building a complex machine, but we are still allowed to laugh. In 2024, after 5 years of early access, Satisfactory hit version 1.0. They finally added the story. They finally gave a use to the Mercer spheres. They finally finished the space elevator project. But for the players, the end of the game didn't matter, because the factory is never finished. Coffee Stain Studios achieved the impossible. They took the most niche, nerdy genre in gaming, logistics simulation, and made it mainstream. They proved that a first-person shooter doesn't need guns. It needs concrete. They proved that a handmade map can beat a generated universe. And they proved that you can start as a studio that makes jokes about goats and end up as the studio that defined a generation of engineering games. Today, millions of pioneers are logging in, not to shoot, not to score points, but to solve a problem, to fix a bottleneck, to make the line go up. Because at the end of the day, FICSIT doesn't pay us for our feelings. They pay us to build. The story of Satisfactory is a reminder that the biggest risks often yield the most efficient rewards. From the hate mail of the Epic Store era to the triumph of Unreal Engine 5, Coffee Stain never compromised their vision. If you have ever lost an entire weekend optimizing a coal power plant, or if you are just discovering the world of automation games, I want to hear from you. What is your spaghetti confession? Did you organize your belts, or is your factory a chaotic mess? Tell me in the comments. We are building a database of gaming's greatest development stories. Smash that subscribe button like it's a giant space tick. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next documentary. Stay effective, pioneers.